before you win in public, you have to win in private first. I've been thinking about this thing you've been talking about: Singapore, China, South Korea, and all those countries on East Asia, and how they moved from a poverty, war, like South Korea, the Korean War, from China being a very poor country to what it is now. And I imagined, or I discovered that the reason why they have been able to do that is because they brought themselves together, or the leadership then, and decided, first of all, to win in private. Before they opened up to the world, after the disasters that happened, or after whatever they were going through at that particular moment, they decided to win inwardly first. That is why it is very hard for them to go down, because the leadership decided to change the way the people think. The first thing that all the four countries did was to change the education system. They made sure that all their children and everyone, each of their citizens, was literate. They really worked hard to make sure that their level of reasoning, the level of intellect for each of their citizens was way above 80%. And why was this important? This was important because you need to change the mindset first, because before you can change the outward things that you see, before you can change the streets, before you can change the housing, before you can change the whatever you can think about, the mindset of the people. That is what needed to be changed. So if you take South Korea as an example, the first thing that they did was to make sure that everyone went to school. Number two, if you look at Singapore, they made sure that all their children went to school and emphasized on the STEM system, science and technology and all that, and mathematics. Why is that important? That is important because it changes somebody's mindset. And before you can change a country, you got to change the mindset of the people that live in that country. You have to change how they think. You got to change how they view the world, how they view themselves first. Because self-respect is the most critical bit in human life. If you are leading a people who do not respect themselves or who have low self-esteem, it doesn't matter what kind of development you bring. Big buildings, good roads, and all that, they will not take care of it. As long as they do not have self-respect, they don't have that understanding of who they are, an understanding of where they're headed, and why what is happening, then it doesn't matter what you do. They will still go back to the pigsty. In fact, it is said that if you take a pig out of its environment and take it to a very clean environment, it will walk back to the marshes and the mud and the feces where it likes staying, and rolling in those feces. It will definitely walk back there because it has not changed its mindset. Its mindset is still a pig's mindset. So you need to change the mindset of the people before you give them development. And that is where the Western world has managed to keep Africans colonized mentally. Because while we were given education, we were never taught how to be analytical. These are changing now, but originally, the school systems in Africa were never about changing the way people perceive themselves. It was about producing workers, clerks, government officials who cannot think beyond. They can't think beyond their nose. So if he's told your work is just to stamp this, that's the thing they do every day, day in, day out, stamp. And they don't think, how can I make it easier for me to stamp this? They are not analytical. They do not think beyond what they have been taught. So schools have been producing substandard people. People who are not analytical in life, people who don't think beyond what they are taught, people who are not innovative, people whose work is to follow what they are told. Whereas in the Western world, and now in the Far East, the children are taught how to think for themselves and how to imagine things and to think about how to change situations. If they don't like a situation, how can I change it? If I don't have money, what can I do? How can I improve what I know that will bring me financial stability? That is what they are taught. They are taught to be analytical in life. They are taught to think differently. They are taught to think outside the box. They are taught to make things better. Not maintain status quo, but to make things better. So that's why innovation is very high. How can I improve that truck to give me, to carry more fruits, for example? Just a simple example. How can I make a better product than the current one that I have? How can I improve this than how I got it? So they are always working towards making their life better. How can I make my work easier? That's why they have created the washing machines. They have created the vacuum cleaners, the automated vacuum cleaners. They have created whatever you can think about. Any gadget that you see around your house that you have not made yourself is made by somebody who just thought, how can I make my life easier? And that's the mindset. How can we prosper? It's not just about the money. It's about innovation. It's about making your work easier, because you can have all the money, but as long as you're still doing things in a manual way, you're still being ineffective. So that's the difference I see between the African education systems. Let me say this in this case, Kenyan education system, which I hope that CBE is going to change, and the Western education system, and basically now the East Asia education system. The products that come out of those education systems are very different in terms of the thinking and in terms of the vision. So I see my son nowadays, he comes home with projects he's supposed to think from scratch and make, however simple it looks and however mangled up it looked. He had to think for himself. He was not taught. He was just given an idea, then he was taught to improve on it. So what are we doing now in our country to make sure that we are not left behind? AI is coming. Data, science is the in thing right now. And as long as we don't own the data, for example, and as long as we don't own the technology, as long as we depend on the US, we depend on UK, we depend on Singapore, we depend on South Korea, we depend on which other country? China, you will always be a consumer, mentally and physically. So the thing is, we need to change. Before you win in public, you have to win privately. Win privately. Think critically first before you go out there and show off. Just my thoughts for this week. Adios.